I'm not gonna lie, since starting my channel, I don't think I've ever been more excited to make a YouTube video. Hello everybody, Nicky Marra here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you've all had a fabulous week and are ready for yet another fun video. And while we have definitely gone behind the scenes before on this channel and talked about some of Disney's best kept secrets, today friends, I am bringing to you a video that I have been planning for so long and I am so excited to dive into this topic. We all know Disney as a company that brings us the most beautiful magic on planet Earth. From the gorgeous animated movies that they produce to their world-class theme parks and attractions, Disney knows how to deliver the best possible show for all guests. But every so often, the magic can go awry. But the cool thing about Disney is that they always have a backup plan. And so yes, the majority of the time you are going to get the full magical experience on a Disney attraction. However, dare I say that Disney in B mode is probably one of the most exciting things in the world to me. There are many Disney rides that have very specific large effects. Either a very complex animatronic figure or a very special ride segment in the ride that takes a lot of power or a lot of artistry. And sometimes those elements are not able to function in the way that they were created. In those particular cases, Disney will flip the ride into what's known as B mode. In B mode, guests don't get to experience the attraction the way it was intended for them to see it. However, they get to see a much rarer type of magic from the Disney parks. As when one of these major effects in a ride will go down, Disney will often have a smaller backup plan. So yes, while a lot of people might find some disappointment in Disney's B modes, I personally sometimes find them to be even more magical because realistically, you're getting to experience something that not a lot of other people get to experience. And so today, friends, we are going to dive into my top 10 favorite instances of Disney's rides and shows going into B mode. But if you're new here, hi, my name's Nicky Marra and I am a Disney content creator. I got my start over on TikTok, but have joined the YouTube community and have been absolutely loving making long form videos for you guys, of which I have brand new long form videos coming out every single Friday at 5 p.m. So to make sure you never miss out on any future magic from me, make sure to hit subscribe down below. And you can also find me on any of my other social medias at Nicky Marra with 2 Y's and 2 R's for even more magic. But yes, friends, we have a lot to talk about in today's video. So before we jump into my list of favorite instances of Disney in B mode, I am going to give you some brief disclaimers and then conditions for the list that I am making today, of which I highly recommend watching both of those today as they are slightly different from my usual disclaimers and conditions. But of course, if you would just like to jump right into our video today, then you can head right to this timestamp. First and foremost, for our disclaimers, I am not associated with the Walt Disney Company and therefore I do not speak for the brand or the company. Any and all opinions in this video are just my own, and this video is also completely compiled on my own research. So if you have experienced a B mode slightly different than the way I'm describing it, that is completely okay. But from my knowledge, in some way, shape, or form, all of these B modes have existed and have been used in some way, shape, or form by the Disney Company. And secondly, I welcome any and all opinions surrounding all of these wonderful Disney rides and Disney shows down in my comment section. So make sure to share all of your thoughts down below, and also be sure to let me know, have you experienced a Disney ride or show in B mode? And thirdly, for our disclaimers, I on this channel very much love to keep the Disney magic. So while talking about all of these instances of Disney in B mode, I'm going to do my absolute best not to ruin any of the magic. I am one of those people that very much holds the Disney magic in my heart, and to me, it is all very real. And so if you are okay with that, and I'm okay with that, then we are going to be good to go forward with this video. And again, while we will be pulling back the curtain just a little bit to look into some of these Disney rides, if you don't want any magic spoiled for you, I think you're going to be okay watching this video. But again, I just wanted to mention really quickly that we are going to be talking about a few moments of behind the scenes magic today, so if you don't want any of that spoiled, then I recommend checking out any of the other videos on my channel. But next, friends, we're going to move into our conditions for the list today. In order to be considered for today's list, we're going to be talking about Disney's rides and Disney's shows that have some sort of plan B to move into should a major effect or event that happens during the attraction goes down. Besides that, this is really just a top 10 list for me of my favorite instances of B mode. This is definitely nowhere near all of the B modes that Disney has. But again, if you have a specific instance of B mode that you really love, make sure to leave it down below because I'm very excited to hear about all of your thoughts and opinions. But friends, with all of that out of the way, I believe we are ready to jump into all of my favorite instances of Disney parks in B mode. Oh yes, and really quick before we jump into the list, I do want to go through the brief talking points we are going to be sure to talk about for each ride or attraction. First, of course, we're going to be talking about where this specific instance of B mode happens, meaning in a ride, in a show, and then we're also going to talk about which park it can be located in. Secondly, we're going to talk about how the ride should be in general with fully functioning effects. And then we are going to be diving in the B mode for the attraction. And believe me when I say I have a lot to say on each of these, so we are going to waste no further time, and it is time, friends, to jump into my top 10 favorite instances of Disney in B mode. We are starting today's list all the way down at the bottom at number 10, which is the Grand Fiesta Tour. Now friends, the Grand Fiesta Tour is a small boat ride that can be located in the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot. This is an absolutely adorable family-style ride where you board a boat and follow along with the three caballeros, seeing as at the beginning of the ride we discover that Panchito and Jose Carioca have lost Donald. And seeing as they have a big performance at the end of this ride, they gotta find him. So we as guests travel across Mexico with both Jose Carioca and Panchito in search for Donald. Now in the final show scene of this beautiful attraction, we get to see the three caballeros in concert, as there are three beautiful animatronics used for Jose Carioca, Panchito, and Donald. All three of them are performing their absolutely iconic Three Caballeros song. And as a little fun fact for you, these three animatronics are actually reused from a previous attraction. They used to be able to be seen in the Mickey Mouse Revue, which was over in the Magic Kingdom, but after that attraction closed, these animatronic figures were repurposed into the Grand Fiesta Tour. And again, for the regular show scene, the one that is very common to see amongst guests, you ride in your little boat ride past their little stage, and you get to see all three caballeros performing their beautiful song. But as for the B mode, my friends, now I will say from my personal experience, this is not a common type of B mode that you're likely to see. I would definitely say this is a once in a blue moon instance. But that being said, every once in a while, one of the three caballeros will need a break, if you know what I mean. And so rather than leaving a still animatronic on show for guests to see, these three feathered friends have come up with a very fun solution in order to keep the show going. Yes, friends, every so often, one of the three Caballero animatronics will indeed malfunction, and that animatronic will need to be temporarily removed. However, in its place, very magically appears a little plant wearing the sombrero that that particular caballero normally wears. So just as an example, friends, if we are on the ride and Donald Duck happens to need a break from performing, we might be riding by the last show scene and we might see the animatronics of Jose Carioca and Panchito, but in place of where Donald would normally be staged will be a gorgeous little plant wearing his sombrero. I don't know, in my personal opinion, I think this is a really cute and clever way to cover up one of these little malfunctions. And in all honesty, it has become a sort of meme or like a general funny moment in the Disney community to go online and say, oh, I guess one of the caballeros just needed a break today. Now don't get me wrong, this is definitely not the most exciting moment of a B mode that Disney has to offer, but I definitely think it is a great, cute, and clever way to cover up a performer's break. But with that, friends, we're gonna jump on up to number 9 on my list, which is the tornado scene in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Now, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is a trackless ride system that can be found in Disney's Hollywood Studios. This is the first attraction ever created starring Mickey Mouse himself, along with the absolutely adorable Minnie Mouse. Now, in this ride, we board Goofy's train and we are about to experience Mickey and Minnie going out on a date. Unfortunately, things go awry and we end up having to chase Mickey and Minnie through a bunch of really fun scenes. But of course, at the end, we get to see the beautiful little picnic that they had planned all along. This one is also a family-style ride, as it is on one of the trackless systems, meaning your ride vehicle stays flat to the ground and you sort of move around, but you really don't know where you're gonna go, considering there is no track. Now in this particular attraction, there is one room that is very cool, which is of course the carnival scene. When you enter the carnival scene, it very much seems like a very normal carnival at first, but in regular operation, you will see Mickey and Minnie float up, being held by some balloons. These animatronic figures float very briefly over a stand that has Donald Duck inside of it, and when a very scary tornado appears in the background, Mickey and Minnie get swept away. It's a very cute scene, and when paired with all of the wind effects that happen inside the room, it really makes for such a wonderful experience. But every once in a while, you know, things go awry. It's a runaway railway, you gotta expect it. And so friends, for this instance of Disney in B mode, we are talking about the specific appearance of Mickey and Minnie, as sometimes the animatronics of Mickey and Minnie are not actually able to float up over the stand that Donald is in. Now when this ride first opened and the issue first arose, originally there was no B mode for this specific instance, seeing as this wasn't really a problem that many people predicted could happen. But seeing as it arose a few times, a B mode was eventually created. Now, as you may know, we are entering the 2D world of Mickey and Minnie, and so there is a lot of projection screening happening all around the building. In the regular show scene, we see Mickey and Minnie float up as animatronics, and behind them is actually a projection screen that is in fact showing us all of the carnival happening behind them. Well, eventually when this issue arose, Mickey and Minnie would not appear. However, you would still be able to hear their voices, and, well, if you hear their voices but don't see them, it really doesn't make the most sense in terms of the attraction's storyline. And so the solution that Imagineers came up with was to have Mickey and Minnie, well, join the background, as eventually brand new animation was created as a part of the projection background. So instead of watching Mickey and Minnie float up as animatronics, you would instead see them as regular 2D animation just projected onto the background. This is honestly a really great use of technology that was already existing within the space. And while I'll be completely honest, it's definitely not more exciting to see this one in B mode, I do find a little excitement in it because not a lot of people get to see this one. The animatronic of Mickey and Minnie floating up in their balloons is usually working at full capacity. And so this isn't one that a lot of people get to experience. But if you ever happen to be riding Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and see Mickey and Minnie float up on balloons as 2D animation, just know that you are having a very special experience that very few people get to see. And of course, this is, again, not one of my very most favorites, but I did want to include this one because it is a relatively new attraction, and I feel like with this one, a lot of people might not even guess that this is a B mode if you happen to see it, because it is extremely seamless and fits in with the rest of the ride perfectly. Regardless, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is such a wonderful ride, and I highly recommend checking it out anytime you're in Disney's Hollywood Studios. But with that being said, you might also have a very special experience on this ride if you happen to see Mickey and Minnie floating up as 2D animation. Now next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 8 on my list. I really like this instance. At number 8 is Na'vi River Journey. Now, Na'vi River Journey is yet again another family-style boat ride attraction that can be found in Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. This ride takes you through the absolutely stunning atmospheric world of Avatar. You get to travel through these truly immersive show scenes that truly bring you into the world of Pandora, meeting not only avatars themselves, but also a lot of the creatures that live in Pandora. This one is a 360 experience. It truly puts you right in the middle of the world of Avatar, and I love getting to experience this attraction. Now, with that being said, probably one of the coolest animatronics that Disney has ever made is the Na'vi Shaman of Songs. And for all of you who have seen my ranking of Disney Parks characters, which I can link up above for you, you will know that we have talked about the Shaman of Songs before. She is truly a wonderful character, so if you want to hear even more about her beyond this video, then you should definitely check out my ranking of the parks characters, but we're going to be talking about the Shaman of Songs in B mode today. Now, normally when you ride this ride, you eventually end up in the final segment of the ride. When we as guests enter into the final showroom of Na'vi River Journey, we are greeted with probably one of the coolest animatronics Disney has ever created, which is the Shaman of Songs. She is also very infamous for being probably the most expensive animatronic ever made. She is larger than life and has probably some of the most fluid movements of any animatronic that Disney has created. It is truly a moment in this ride where your jaw just drops as it's technology beyond our belief. It is such a cool experience getting to see this animatronic. She sings out a beautiful song to us as she beats on the drums that are sitting around her, and seeing as we are on the river journey, we actually get to float up very close to her. And so with this specific effect that is so incredible, we actually get a very close look at her. The Shaman of Songs is definitely not to be missed, but every so often, unfortunately, she does go into a B mode. Now, let's talk about this B mode because it is quite something. Every so often, the Shaman of Songs might, well, get a little tired, or her voice might be a little tired, you know, very normal. And unfortunately, this puts the animatronic into a malfunction state. The animatronic will cease to move around and will be rather still. Now, what you may not know is that cast members are always keeping a very close watch on her to make sure that she is okay. Should anything go wrong with the Na'vi Shaman of Songs, the rest of the guests that have already boarded the Na'vi River journey will complete their journey, which may give them the experience of seeing the Na'vi Shaman of Songs while not functioning. However, as soon as cast members see that she is not well, they will stop boarding guests onto the boat, and once all guests have passed by her and the ride is completely empty, she will then enter B mode. The Na'vi Shaman of Songs will be lowered into the ground so that way cast members can come attend to her. And in the place of the Na'vi Shaman of Songs will come down a screen-like projection. On the screen, you will actually see a full animation of the same character. Now, I will say I've never seen this one in person. I have only seen this instance through online videos that have surfaced. And honestly, I think the Imagineers did such a wonderful job creating a B mode that truly represents the Shaman of Songs. But with that being said, it is inevitable that this version is a little less impressive than actually seeing the real Shaman of Songs. Now, I will be completely honest, I am one of the few who actually, at some point in life, really hopes I get to see this, as again, I am the kind of individual who actually very much enjoys getting to see a B mode, considering it's really a very special experience that not a lot of other people get to see. But with that being said, as soon as the Shaman of Songs has been attended to, once again, the ride will stop boarding guests, and as soon as everybody has cycled through, the Shaman of Songs will rise up, the screen projection of her will also raise up, and then guests will once again be able to experience Na'vi River Journey, but this time with a fully functioning Na'vi Shaman of Songs. This, I think, is truly a wonderful plan that Disney had in place for this attraction, seeing as a lot of guests really board this attraction to see the Shaman of Songs herself. And while she is extremely impressive, at least Disney was able to have some sort of plan as a backup so that way guests had something to see. In my opinion, it is a much better experience than seeing just an empty place where the Shaman of Songs once sat. I am always so in awe of this attraction that I truly think even seeing the Shaman of Songs in B mode would truly make it a magical experience. But yeah, this one still ranks relatively low on my list because there are a lot of really other cool Disney in B mode examples, and I cannot wait to jump into them. But yes, that is our friend, the Na'vi Shaman of Songs in B mode. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 7 on my list, which is the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Now, Smuggler's Run can be found over in Disney's Hollywood Studios in the Star Wars land, and this is a simulator-type attraction where you and 5 other guests board into the Millennium Falcon. All of you must take on different roles to control the ship and actually drive it through a lot of different lands of Star Wars. And while this ride does not technically have any animatronics on the ride itself, there is one that many guests find to be extremely impressive, and he actually resides in the queue. In the line for Smuggler's Run, we actually get to see Hondo Ohnaka. Hondo himself is a fully functioning animatronic who actually tells guests all about the experience that they are about to have. If you've ever been in a line for a Disney ride and you've ever heard the "please keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the ride," then that is sort of the role that Hondo takes on for this particular attraction. He explains to guests their role, meaning either a pilot, gunner, or mechanic. and will tell you what your job is when seated for this particular attraction. He is very infamous for being a very fluid moving animatronic and one that impresses many, many guests. And I have to say, I've seen him a few times and he is so cool. But with that being said, every so often in the line for this ride, this animatronic does malfunction. I mean, Hondo needs a break too, right? It's a hard world out there in Star Wars land. And so while in line for this attraction, if you happen to see Hondo in a slightly different way, then you might be experiencing Disney in a B mode, as instead of seeing a full animatronic monologuing to you about the ride experience that you are about to have, you might get a slightly different experience. As when unfortunately the Hondo animatronic malfunctions, boxes and crates are actually placed in front of him to shield him from guests' view. And instead of guests seeing the animatronic figure monologuing all of the experience of this ride to them, they will instead actually get Hondo himself on a screen that is on either side of the platform that the animatronic resides on. Seeing as normally when the animatronic is speaking to you, there will be visuals on either side of him showing you exactly what is going to happen on the ride. Instead, Hondo will actually appear on one of those screens as a character talking to you. And actually, something to note that's kind of funny is his dialogue will actually be slightly different than if you see him as an animatronic. As when he appears on the teleprompting screen, he will actually say to you, "I am very sorry, friends, that I'm not able to be there with you in person." It's kind of a funny little nod to the fact that they are actually in B mode. And yes, as far as I know, this is not a relatively common B mode to be seen, especially considering this animatronic doesn't actually reside on the ride itself, and so the fact that it's just in the queue, my guess is that it's actually more accessible for cast members to quickly fix, as opposed to an animatronic that is sat in the middle of a complete and put together ride system. But with that being said, he's still a very cool animatronic, and the fact that he also, much like the Shaman of Songs, appears on a screen is kind of cool in my opinion. Regardless, I love this ride and I really enjoy getting to see the Hondo animatronic and also getting to fly around the Star Wars land. It's so cool, it's so fun. But not straying too far from the path, we're gonna move on up to number 6, which is Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. Now, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance actually takes up 2 places on today's list, but let's start off with number 6 on my list, which is the Kylo Ren animatronic. Now, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance is a full 20-minute experience, which includes not only a walkthrough portion, but also a full ride system. I don't want to spoil too much of this one for you, so I'll keep it brief. You start off by walking through the Resistance base. Eventually you board an airship which gets captured by the First Order. You then are brought to the First Order prisons, and eventually you board the ride system and escape the First Order, landing back in Star Wars Land. Well, once you're able to actually board the ride vehicle and start your escape from the First Order, you actually come into contact with Kylo Ren himself. You see him in a couple of different instances, but there is one very particular animatronic that is very infamous for, well, having its issues. As at one point during your ride vehicle swivels around to reveal a fully fleshed out Kylo Ren animatronic. He controls your ride vehicle with the Force, and eventually an explosion happens behind him which drops some rubble down on him, and you are able to escape the room. When it is fully functioning, this is such a cool moment in the ride, and it is very technologically advanced and so impressive. However, with there being so many moving parts and with so much advanced technology in this scene, things are often bound to go wrong. In an instance where Kylo Ren is not able to perform up to standards, he is entered into a B mode. Now, B mode for this specific show scene is actually kind of cool. What you may not know is when you are turned to look at Kylo Ren, on either side of you is a television projection screen. If the animatronic is unable to perform all of its functions, then it will actually begin the scene where Kylo Ren is actually already covered in rubble. Remember how I said in the normal show scene at the very end he'll get crushed by a bunch of rubble? Well, that rubble is already down in order to block your view from the animatronic. And instead of being faced towards the Kylo Ren animatronic, you are actually faced towards one of the 2 projection screens. On the screen will appear Kylo Ren in one of the fighter jets, and he will say the exact same dialogue that you would hear him say if he were actually a live animatronic in front of you. And rather than being crushed by rubble, much like he is in animatronic form, instead his ship will malfunction and have some sort of flames fly out from the side of it, and he'll spiral off screen. It's another instance of a really cool kind of cover-up for this scene, considering, again, it is very possible that this show scene will be down from time to time because it's so technologically advanced. But I really think Disney did such a great job creating a B mode for this scene, considering some people ride this ride and experience the B mode, and again, don't even really realize that they're experiencing B mode in the moment. Considering the rubble being down on Kylo Ren is such a blocked moment that you're not even really paying attention. The rubble is not really entertaining to look at so much as the screen in front of you. Now, what I will say about this B mode in particular is that you're much more likely to see it, again, considering this show scene does go down from time to time. So while it is a very cool instance of a B mode show, I have seen this one quite a few times, probably equal to the number of times that I've actually seen the Kylo Ren animatronic. Perhaps I am one of the lucky ones to have seen both of them at even numbers, because I know a lot of people go to experience the animatronic and aren't able to see it. But I will say, in terms of my personal experience, it is pretty even whether or not I get A mode or B mode. Regardless, I love this instance, and it's always sort of a fun moment to see which one are we gonna get. But yes, if you have ridden this ride, please let me know down in the comments which of these two modes you have gotten. I'm very curious to see how often this B mode actually appears. Whew, but with that, friends, we've reached the halfway point of today's list. I hope you are enjoying all of the B mode talk so far. And believe me when I say we have only scratched the surface, as we are now entering into some of my absolute favorite instances of B mode. With that, we're gonna move on up to number 5 on my list, but we're still not gonna stray from Rise of the Resistance. As I discussed before, Rise of the Resistance is the 20-minute experience with both the walkthrough section and the ride vehicle section. Well, since we talked about a B mode that occurs while you're on the ride vehicle itself, this time I want to talk about a rarer B mode that actually happens when you're in the walking section. As right when you are about to start the full experience by entering into the room with the transmission of Rey, there is a full sequence that takes place in the first room. You will see a full hologram panel where Rey actually appears and tells you about the adventure you're about to take, as well as talking over with a little BB-8 and also a Poe Dameron. Now, what's fun about this scene is that the way it's normally supposed to be set up is that Rey is a hologram off to the side, and over on the other side of the wall that you are looking at, there is a hidden BB-8 figure, as well as 2 television screens, one that projects Poe Dameron, and the other of which will project other characters and also other visuals for you to look at. Well, every so often, there actually happens to be a slight malfunction with the transmission of Rey. Normally you will hear there is an incoming transmission from Rey, and then she will appear as a full hologram in the actual portal. Unfortunately, sometimes the portal might be having a little bit of a glitch in the system that day, in which case you will not get the full mission outlay from a hologram Rey, but you will instead get it in a B mode. In B mode, for this specific show scene, the hologram will still make a slight movement as if Rey is going to appear, but instead, Rey will actually appear on one of the other 2 little television screens over where Poe Dameron and all of the other projections are happening. Now granted, it is the same exact footage of actress Daisy Ridley, but instead of showing up as a hologram, she instead shows up as just normal footage, as if you would see in a film. And instead of getting to see a full body shot of her, you instead only get to see, well, pretty much what you guys get to see of me on YouTube every week. With all that being said, while this one may not initially seem as cool as like the Kylo Ren animatronic cover-up, this one is much rarer, and so a lot of guests actually never get to see this one, considering it's actually a lot less likely for the hologram to go down and not be operational. And so the majority of the time you actually are going to see the incoming transmission of Rey as a hologram, and not on the little teleprompter. But if you happen to walk into this show scene and actually see Rey show up on the teleprompter, just know that you are experiencing a very rare type of Disney magic. Next, friends, we are moving on up to number 4 on my list. This is my favorite thing on Disney property, so I am going to give you all an earful. At number 4 on my list is the beautiful show Fantasmic. And if you have never gotten to see Fantasmic, this is one of the most technologically difficult shows that Disney puts on every single night. There are a ton of B modes that are set in place for this show. On today's list, we are going to be talking about 2 of them. At number 4 is the riverboat segment. Now, Fantasmic is a nighttime spectacular. It is in fact a show that takes place in the Hollywood Hills Amphitheater, which can be found at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It is an outdoor show with a lot of projection mapping, pyrotechnics, and water effects. And let me just tell you, this is without a doubt my favorite thing of all time on Disney property. This show is the Disney magic for me. It makes me absolutely sob like a baby every single time I watch it without fail. In fact, in my everyday life, I'll actually talk about this show with people and it will get me emotional just talking about it. So we'll see if that happens in this video. In this show, we experience Mickey's dream. Mickey appears at the very beginning and starts to show us a truly magical spectacle. Eventually, he begins to dream about a lot of his friends, meaning a lot of the other Disney characters, and they begin to also make appearances on the magical mountain. Eventually, some villains enter the picture and threaten Mickey's dream. At the very end, Mickey comes face to face with a very threatening foe, who we will talk about in a little bit. But after he is able to defeat the main villain, there is cause for a celebration. And so with that, friends, at number 4 on this list today of Disney in B mode is the riverboat segment. Now, every single night at Fantasmic, should the show be going on the way it is intended to go on, Mickey will defeat the main villain, followed by a magical celebration with not only Mickey, but all of his magical friends. This magical celebration begins when a riverboat appears. At the beginning, it's seemingly empty, but after Mickey magically appears to steer the wheel, all of his friends also magically appear on the riverboat, and this is one of the most magical moments of this entire show. It is so beautiful. Get it together. Don't cry. We're good. We're good. Okay. Once Mickey and all of his friends appear on the riverboat, they all begin magical choreography with these beautiful streamers. The boat makes its way all the way around the mountain, and then we actually get to see all of his friends disappear from the boat. And while this one is definitely not a common occurrence, one of the few issues that could technically happen with Fantasmic is that the riverboat is not able to run. But luckily, Mickey's dream is able to reroute very quickly and still bring us an absolutely magical ending. Should the riverboat not be able to become on stage for guests to see, the same music will actually still play, but in an absolutely beautiful turn of events, all of the friends that inhabit the riverboat will actually come out onto the mountain stage. They will break out into their very same choreography, and they will still be able to have their full celebration for Mickey. Now, while the choreography and the experience can be very comparable between the two, there are very few differences between the A mode and the B mode. Now, A mode for this segment, of course, has the full riverboat, which you are able to see pass by you on the moat. In B mode, you will not see that, but you will also see all of the characters come out onto the stage and do their very same choreography. And while almost every single character is still able to come out and take part in the magic, there are actually 3 that will not translate over to B mode. The first of which is Mickey Mouse himself, seeing as he probably needs to be ready to steer the riverboat. And if he doesn't know that the riverboat isn't functioning, then he's not going to be able to make it to the stage in time. But the other 2 characters who do not appear in the B mode are actually 2 of my favorites, Princess Ariel and her Prince Eric. And this is probably because, well, Ariel probably isn't able to have enough time to transform into her human legs. It could also be that King Triton just isn't in the general vicinity in order to transform her. And so with that being said, she isn't able to fully walk out onto the stage, and so Prince Eric decides that he's going to sit in the back with her and just enjoy the music. But besides Mickey, Ariel, and Eric, every other character is able to be seen, so believe me when I say you still get an absolutely beautiful experience for Fantasmic's riverboat going into B mode. This is one that I personally have never experienced, but I hope to one day, because honestly, this show is so beautiful and I'm usually crying very heavily at this moment. But I would probably really love to see this show in B mode. This is a very rare experience, and if you get to see it, you're actually extremely lucky. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 3 on my list, not straying too far from the path. At number 3 is the Fantasmic Final Battle. Now, remember how I said in the plot of this show, Mickey actually faces a very fearsome foe? Well, the final battle of this show is actually Mickey versus Maleficent. Maleficent is my favorite Disney villain of all times. I absolutely love her, and this battle is absolutely historic. Now, as we all remember from her fight against Prince Philip, she actually raises up off of the ground and actually transforms into a dragon. Well, every night at Fantasmic, this is also the case, seeing as in a mode of this show, Maleficent actually appears on the mountain stage and threatens Mickey with being able to take over his imagination. She throws a very scary fireball and then actually begins to levitate off of the ground, much like she does in the movie Sleeping Beauty. It is truly frightening, and she reaches great heights with her ascent. Again, still in A mode, once she reaches her height of power, she actually transforms into her fire-breathing dragon. At this point, the dragon is fully out for audiences to see, and it is menacing and scary, and Mickey must take up his sword and fight the fire-breathing dragon. This is truly such a sight to see, and it just gives me chills every single time. Oh, I love this show so much. Okay, anyways, let's get into the B mode. Now, every so often, something will go awry, and Maleficent will find herself not as powerful as she normally is. In those instances, she herself might not be able to transform into the fire-breathing dragon. In such cases, Maleficent will rise up per usual, much like she does in A mode, and once she reaches the absolute tallest height that she is able to grow to before transforming into the dragon, she will actually stay there. When the projections fade away, Maleficent will still be there in her fairy appearance, meaning the way we saw her as if she wouldn't transform into the dragon. It is then that Mickey will have to fight Maleficent in her real, human-looking fairy form. Maleficent will still tower above the stage, looking very scary and menacing, but it is she herself, not in her dragon form, that will light fire across the stage, and who Mickey will have to defeat. In all honesty, I have been so fortunate to see this show so many times that whenever anything goes awry on the stage, I'm usually able to catch it and point it out after the show. But regardless, I love this show so much. I could make an entire 2-hour video on the show. If you guys want that video, please let me know, because oh my god, I would love to talk about Fantasmic for hours on end. But with that being said, friends, we are going to move on to our final 2 instances of B mode, as next we are going to move on up to number 2 on my list. At number 2 on my list of Disney in B mode is the ride Dinosaur, and this ride can be found in Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. Now, Dinosaur is a thrill ride where you board a fast-moving Jeep and very quickly travel through the Cretaceous period. You find yourself maneuvering a lot of foliage and a lot of different dinosaurs who are all coming at you. It can be very fast, scary, and intimidating, but it's honestly such a fun ride. And it actually ranked very high up on my ranking of Disney World rides, which I'll link above for you. But in that video, we actually go through every single ride in Walt Disney World, and I rank them from my least to most favorite. And Dinosaur is really up there. It is such a great ride. And probably the reason that this one is so creepy, scary, and infamous is the giant dinosaur, the Carnotaurus. Now, the Carnotaurus is a dinosaur that you actually encounter 3 times during your ride experience. The first 2 times you see this dinosaur, it will be on the left-hand side of your ride vehicle. What's actually interesting about the Carnotaurus's appearance is that the animatronic actually scales up in size each time you see him, making him feel more and more intimidating and scary. The first time you see him, he will raise his head up and just glare at you. The second time, he will actually run alongside your ride vehicle on the left-hand side. But it's the third time that we see this giant Carnotaurus that is absolutely terrifying, as our ride vehicle will race around a corner, and on the right-hand side of us will appear the full-body, full-scale, huge animatronic of the Carnotaurus, which is lurching forward at us. This is such an image to behold. It is so scary and makes me scream wildly every time I see it. I love getting to see the Carnotaurus, and he is one of the most technologically advanced animatronics, has to be, because he is so large and moves so much. It is truly terrifying, but every so often, our Carnotaurus needs to take a nap, in which case this ride will be put into B mode. In this ride's B mode, for the big climactic encounter with the Carnotaurus, foliage is actually placed on top of the Carnotaurus animatronic, so that way you will not see him. He's concealed from where riders would normally see him. Likewise, his lighting will also be turned off as to divert your attention. And remember when I said when you're in this ride vehicle, the Carnotaurus appears on the left-hand side of your vehicle for the first 2 times, but he appears in his giant form on the right-hand side. Well, what you might not know is that hidden in the shadows on the left-hand side of your vehicle is the giant head of the Carnotaurus. Normally, when this ride is functioning in A mode, the lighting surrounding the Carnotaurus head on the left-hand side is completely turned off, and so he is absolutely not visible to any guests, seeing as he's of course on the right-hand side and he's lurching at you. But my friends, when this ride switches into B mode, the Carnotaurus on the right is completely covered in foliage, and lights are turned on the left-hand side of your vehicle to reveal the Carnotaurus head. So technically you still get your encounter with the Carnotaurus, however this is in fact a static figure and it is only the head of the character. You actually don't get the full body image like you would in A mode. Now you might be thinking to yourself, this is kind of cool, but why does it rank so high on my list today? Well friends, the reason that it ranks so high is that the dinosaur ride is unfortunately not going to be around for too much longer. We only have very few more months to experience this ride, and so we don't really know how many more times this ride is really going to ever go into B mode. While I personally haven't experienced it, it is such a cool iteration of this ride, but I also have to say the other reason why this ranks so high on my list is that I'm a really big fan of like the creepy and scary, and so I think there is something just so unsettling about the fact that while we are riding through this ride in A mode, in the secret shadows on the left-hand side is a giant Carnotaurus head that we don't even get to see. It's just sitting there looking at us. There is something so unsettling about knowing that, and this ride just adds a whole nother layer of like fear of the unseen or fear of what's in the shadows for me. I absolutely love it, and it just absolutely creeps me out in the best way. But yes, friends, I absolutely love the dinosaur ride. It is probably one of my favorite instances of a B mode, and while I have not seen this B mode in person and probably won't ever get the chance, there's always wishful thinking. Let's hope it happens for me sometime in 2025. But with that, friends, we have reached number 1 on my list of favorite instances of Disney in B mode. And this is probably one of the most iconic instances of all time, as at number 1 on my list is Expedition Everest. Now, Expedition Everest is a roller coaster type ride in the dark that actually can be found over in Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. It is a treacherous roller coaster ride through the Forbidden Mountain, ending in an iconic encounter with the legendary Yeti. Now, I'm going to insert some footage of the Yeti animatronic itself, and here is a fair warning, and it is very large and very intimidating, so if you are frightened by large depictions of animatronics, then I would definitely recommend skipping ahead a little bit. So I just wanted to give a brief disclaimer for that. But let's get into the iconic Yeti animatronic. When this animatronic was created, it was the absolute biggest animatronic that Disney had ever created, and it also had some of the widest range of motion. This animatronic was controlled by several hydraulic systems. It had upwards of, I want to say, 10 to 14 seconds of animation, which is a lot for an animatronic figure of this stature. But yes, it was placed at the base of the mountain right at the very end of the ride. In its animation, your train car would race into the room with the Yeti, and the Yeti would lurch at you with his right hand. He would come very close to your ride vehicle, making this a truly terrifying experience. And in this particular instance, this in fact was A mode of this ride. Well, unfortunately, about a year and a half into this ride's operation, the foundation that the Yeti was created on unfortunately began to crack under all of the weight and pressure of the Yeti's movement. Eventually, the Yeti's movement was scaled down into a much smaller motion, but when it once again was deemed unsafe for the Yeti to continue moving at the rate that he was, he unfortunately was turned down into a static figure. Meaning, if you go on the ride today, you are still seeing the same animatronic that was put in place when the ride debuted, but unfortunately all of his motion and animation has been turned off completely, and he sits still. Now, when the Imagineers originally turned him off into a static position, the effect of him just being there didn't seem very realistic, and so a lighting plot was actually put in place for this B mode. In this lighting plot, a light was placed behind the Yeti that would flash. As you would race by the Yeti, you would only see him every other second, which would create the illusion that he was actually moving at you. This is actually very convincing, and this is actually what you get to see if you go on the ride today. This figure and this ride is perpetually placed into B mode. And while famous Imagineer Joe Rohde has promised to one day fix the Yeti, unfortunately, it seems like that might not happen, considering it would take so much time, effort, money, and energy by the Disney company to actually take down this ride completely, fix the Yeti, and then completely revamp the ride in order to open it up for guests. It is my guess that Disney has accepted that this is now the A mode of this ride, and again, it is my guess that we will be seeing Disco Yeti for a long time to come. And I have to say, while this is technically not part of the B mode, I was actually very lucky the last time I was able to visit the Walt Disney World Resort, as back in October of 2024, I actually boarded Expedition Everest, and in the particular show scene where your ride vehicle has just gone backwards and you are placed in front of a shadow of the Yeti ripping up the track, there actually happened to be a malfunction with the ride and all of the lights came up inside the mountain. It was in that moment where my brain sort of registered, oh my god, the Yeti is coming up. Am I gonna get to see the Yeti with the lights on? And as the ride continued sending us down the track and racing around, I did in fact get to see the Yeti animatronic with full lighting. This was definitely a bucket list moment to see the animatronic in its full glory. And even though it's only for like 3 to 4 seconds, it was all I needed. It is such a large and imposing animatronic, and oh my god, to be in the presence of that and to have such a good visual on it is truly like bone-chilling. It is so, so cool. And so, while we might be stuck in perpetual B mode with the Yeti, I truly love him. There is such a soft place in my heart for this big static animatronic, and I will find so much joy every single time I ride Expedition Everest and visit my Disco Yeti friend. Ooh, but with that, friends, we have talked about my top 10 favorite instances of Disney in B mode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had so much fun talking about all of these wonderful Disney rides. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on any future magic from me. Likewise, if you'd like to find me on any of my other social medias, my handle is @NickyMarra with 2 I's and 2 R's. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat for even more magic. But with that, my friends, I'll say stay magical, and until next week, I'll see you all real soon.